You are in for a treat because support for today's episode comes from Jeannie Kane. Think minimalist meets luxury. Jeannie Kane items are classic, comfortable, and California-inspired clothes. From the cotton or cashmere knit sweater you're obsessed with to the flowy summer dress you never want to take off. With elevated everyday basics and wardrobe essentials, getting dressed is easier than ever before. When it comes to investing in an outfit that'll last, we choose Jeannie Kane. For a limited time, our listeners get 15% off their entire order. Go to jeanniekane.com and use the code RATCHET to get 15% off. Now, I love my Jeannie Kane clothes because Jeannie Kane believes in one thing, the art of simplicity. With a focus on comfort, quality, and timeless design, Jeannie Kane makes pieces that truly never go out of style, which is super important to me because on the road, I really don't shop like I would at home. Jeannie Kane makes sure that everything in my suitcase is stylish and cozy no matter the occasion. Find your forever pieces at jeanniekane.com. Our listeners get 15% off your first order when you use code RATCHET at checkout. That's 15% off your first order at jeanniekayne.com. Promo code RATCHET. The brand go-to for all season staples. Treat yourself because you deserve it. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and those who don't identify as either, you are listening to Ratchet and Respectable. Y'all, I am up at 6:02. When I say 6:02, I mean 6:02 a.m. I usually don't record this early in the day. I'm not really a morning person. Sometimes I'm forced to be. But I am out at a safari lodge. I told you I wasn't staying in Johannesburg too long. I made it 3 days, 2 days in my apartment, and then 1 day at a hotel. I'm still working with the travel agency, the one I was working with in Cape Town, Africentric. The whole time I've been in Johannesburg, because I was living here, I've been in South Africa for almost 3 months. I've had an Airbnb in Stanton. I haven't had a chance to experience some of like the really good hotels, and they got like some Uber Lux type-ish. So I stayed at the Saxon a couple nights ago. It's a former residence that was turned into a hotel. So technically, it's a boutique hotel because it's not like, like a Marriott or something like that. But the thing is huge. And it's in the middle of Johannesburg, which is like, major metropolitan city. And it's a whole like wooded playground. Like you like drive up and through the woods and you're like, wait, are we going the right way? Did my Uber driver just try to kidnap me? And then you come upon like the former residence, which turned into a hotel, expanded some, but huge. Like they've got this massive dining room and they were like, oh yeah, this used to be like the indoor pool. I'm like, wait, what? Huge. Nelson Mandela was a friend of the owner. And in addition to be like one of the, I don't know, like the Waldorf Astoria or Ritz-Carlton of Johannesburg, it's also known for Nelson Mandela, not retired there. I guess retired is the right word. But Nelson Mandela went there and stayed for 6 months before it was open to the public to finish his memoir, Long Walk to Freedom. So it's really well known for that. And there's pictures of Nelson Mandela literally all over the hotel and other famous guests. It's actually a sketch of a picture. But Oprah stays there when she's in South Africa, Will Smith, the Clintons. But they're known for their VIP guests. Heads of state also stay there. Like they tell me like 3 presidential suites. I did a tour of the hotel with the GM and she gave me all sorts of behind the scenes tidbits. It was really cute. It was a good stay. And then I came out to, I'm going to butcher this name, Pilanesberg. But there's a place called Lux Lodge. By the time you hear this, I would have checked out. It's in a white rhino reserve. So I'm on safari again, essentially. This will be my last one for a while as my joyous time in South Africa is slowly coming to a close. It's dope. Like a gymnast could do a whole series of flips like through this room. I'm staying in this gorgeous villa, personal pool, outdoor shower and bath, views of the mountains. It's got a watering hole. A hippo came up to it last night. Really, really cute place. Emperor King bed. I love it here. I could live here. Like you put a kitchen in this suite, I would never leave. You have to fight me out. I went on safari twice. We've seen good animals. No lion yet. And actually, I won't see a lion this trip. I skipped yesterday's safari because I wasn't feeling well. And I also just wanted to rest. Safari is not a leisurely vacation. You get up every day at I don't know, 4:30, 5 o'clock this safari. They leave at 5:30. The last one I was on, they left at 5, so I was up by 4:30. But you get up at the crack of dawn, and here you ride from 5 a.m. until 10 a.m. And I did it yesterday. It is freezing. Like, I had on a sweater, I had on a hoodie, I had on a poncho, I had a blanket over all of that and was still cold. And I was like, no, it's becoming winter here, quote unquote winter. It's not all that cold. It's just you're sitting in the safari truck and ain't no windows. And then because it's early morning, the driver puts the windshield window down because it fogs up. So it's just like he's driving along and the wind is just blowing all on us. It's freezing. And I was like, do I want to do that? Do I have time to do that? If you listen to this podcast since I've been in South Africa, you know the first 2 weeks I was here, I was in a writer's room for one of my favorite shows. They called me over the weekend and was like, hey, can you come back? And I was like, yeah, let me figure it out. Like, I'm on the road. And they were like, yeah, figure it out. So I'm back. But it's every day it's 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So it's 7 p.m. to midnight every day for me, which is better than before because the time changed in the States. Last time we did it, it was 8 p.m. to 1 a.m., which like killed me. And sitting in the dark for a good chunk of it because of load shedding. At least right now I'm on the road and I have light. So I was like, how am I going to get the podcast done? And also do the writer's room because that takes a few hours and sleep and go on safari. And I was like, something has to give. So the safari gave. No worries. The lions ain't going nowhere. The animals that they attack, though, might. I went on safari twice and we hadn't seen a lion yet. And lions are super popular here. And I was like, hey, bro, where the lions at? And he was like, actually, there were like 90 lions in the park and they were eating everybody. So when you would come to the park, there wouldn't be nobody left. The lions were chowing down on all the animals. They were just killing everybody. So they had to move some lions out of the park so that other species could survive. And I was like, yo, this National Geographic shit that you're explaining to me is wild. There's also a bunch of rhinos in the park. We saw a mommy and a baby the other day. They've had to dehorn all the rhinos in their park because poachers kept killing all the rhinos. They're about to become extinct. Even in the park now, I've seen this on other safaris, is if you run into some animals, safari guide goes on his walkie-talkie and he alerts the other drivers that there's an animal sighting. We just saw elephants, we just saw monkeys, we just saw whatever, but here they are. We saw the rhinos and I just noticed he didn't do it. And he noticed that we noticed that he didn't do it. And he explained about the rhino preservation. And he was like, yeah, when we see them, we don't alert anyone because sometimes poachers get on our airwaves and we don't want them to get the rhinos. But he was like, literally after they dehorn the rhinos in the park, he was like, we haven't had one poaching situation. And I was like, y'all are really killing all these rhinos for that little horn? It's supposed to be like a big, I don't know, like prize to kill the whole rhino for their horn. It's so barbaric. Like once you see the animals like just chilling in their natural habitat, like it's one thing to see animals in a zoo, which I'm anti-zoo now too, even though I understand it's for educational purposes and, you know, but still, like y'all got to do something better. Y'all can't be literally keeping animals in cages. They don't belong there. I totally get now how people get up and protest for animals in zoos. Like y'all ain't got nothing else to protest? Yes, there are other things, but that's important too. Animals don't belong in zoos. What else is going on? There's so much good Black news this week and some shitty news. We're going to talk about most of it. Morris Chestnut is headed to one of our favorite shows, Reasonable Doubt. We watched Reasonable Doubt as a family. I did recaps of it every week. That was the one with Jax, the lawyer, who was married or estranged from McKinley Freeman. He was on Hit the Floor. That's when I first met him and fell in love with him. He was also Nova's boyfriend in the final season of Queen Sugar. That wasn't my favorite choice for Nova. I like the nerdy guy who was also a public intellectual, but she didn't like him, so he didn't last. But McKinley Freeman is the husband on the show. And then Michael Ealy was on the show, but Michael Ealy is gone. And I just saw an announcement when I woke up this morning, like everybody and their mother hit me. So it must have happened while I was asleep. But Morris Chestnut is joining Reasonable Doubt. And it's been picked up for season 2, which I was like, wait, it just now got renewed? It's a really, really good show. I just assumed it was a go. I didn't realize there was any question about whether it would be renewed. I assume Morris Chestnut is going to be Jack's love interest. No judgment for Jax. Like, I mean, she likes to bust it wide and spread it open. And her husband likes to watch. I mean, there's a lot going on in that show. So I was like, wait, do we get like the same number and level of sex scenes with Morris Chestnut that we got with Michael Ealy? I hope so. You know how I feel about Morris Chestnut. It's exactly how I feel about Michael Ealy. He didn't do it for me in Boys in the Hood. But I remember I was living overseas and The Best Man came out, and all of a sudden everybody was like, Morris Chestnut, Morris Chestnut, Morris Chestnut. And I was like, from Boys in the Hood? And they were like, girl, you got to see The Best Man. And then Lance walked into the club and he had that little cross. I literally gasped. I was like, oh. It was almost like the first time I saw Denzel when he was getting that beating in Glory and he was shirtless. I remember that is the first time I'd ever been attracted to anyone. Like I was like, I don't know, 8, 10, something like that. But looking at Denzel Washington in Glory, like I had a leap in my chest and I was like, oh, I didn't register it at the time as the moment I knew I was heterosexual, but that was it. It was like, oh. And then I was like, what is this feeling that's come over me? As a man. The sun is shining, the birds are chirping, and the spring air is warm, which means sweat is upon us. Lumi deodorant is here to keep us fresh. With best-selling scents like lavender sage, clean tangerine, and fresh alpine, you'll smell better than ever. Lumi also just launched new scents, including mint cucumber and soft powder. Sign me up. I love my Lumi deodorant, and I love that it's the first of its kind. It was created by an OBGYN who discovered and proved in clinical testing that the vagina is not to blame for day-to-day odor below the belt. So she developed Lumi, a uniquely formulated pH-balanced deodorant. It's aluminum-free, skin-safe, and clinically proven to control odor for up to 72 hours. Lumi is a first of its kind and seriously safe to use anywhere on your body, whether it's your pits, underboobs, thigh folds, belly buttons, butt cracks, and feet. For most of your places that can get not so fresh, Lumi is the solution. Lumi Starter Pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like a mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for listeners, new customers get $5 off a Lumi Starter Pack with code RATCHET at lumideodorant.com. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack when you visit lumideodorant.com and use code RATCHET. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. You know, bouncing around the world, my senses are always heightened and I always feel like I'm learning something new about myself. Getting to know yourself can be a lifelong process, especially because we're always growing and changing. That's a good thing. If you're not growing, you're dying. Therapy is all about deepening your self-awareness and understanding, because sometimes we don't know what we want or why we react the way we do until we talk through things. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who can take you on that journey of self-discovery from wherever you are. You listen to this podcast, so you know that I am a huge advocate of therapy. I think everyone should have a little, and don't wait until you're in crisis to get some. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Discover your potential with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/ratchet today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/ratchet. Busy schedule? Sakara delivers ready-to-eat plant-rich meals that help you look and feel your best, even during those weeks of back-to-back meetings and happy hours. Manage weight, ease bloat, and keep energy levels high with science-backed, nutritionally designed meals that you will actually look forward to eating. Seriously, they're delicious. Sakara's plant-rich, organic, ready-to-eat meals ensure you get the right nutrients to see and feel real results. I love Sakara. I love their range of options and how easy they make it for me to eat healthy. Sakara brings expertly designed organic nutrition programs and wellness essentials right to your door. Their science backed, ready to eat meals deliver results you can see and feel, from weight management and eased bloat to boosted energy and clearer skin. And right now, Sakara is offering our listeners 20% off their first order when they go to sakara.com/ratchet or enter code ratchet at checkout. That's Sakara, SAKARA.com/ratchet to get 20% off your first order. Sakara.com/ratchet. That's also how I felt when I saw Morris Chestnut in Best Man. I've been in love ever since. No disrespect to wife Pam. Don't come punch me in the face, Pam. I'm just looking, no touching. That man fine as shit. Ooh. Sorry, focus. But he's joining the new season of Reasonable Doubt. No word on when it comes out, but whenever it does and wherever I am, I will figure it out how to see it. My boo, my Usher is going to Paris. I'm going to London from South Africa, and I'm going to be there for 3 or 4 months. I'm using London as a base camp, if you will, to bounce around Europe for a good chunk of the summer. I've wanted to move back to London. I lived in London when I was 20, and I've always wanted to live there again. So I'm living out a fantasy that I had in college. You know, I'm obsessed with Usher. Like, we've all been through this. So I was trying to figure out how to see Usher before I go back to Ghana this fall. And the dates just weren't working. I already have a lease for my apartment in Ghana, and the dates that I need to be there don't coincide with seeing Usher in Vegas. Like, yes, I know I saw him once already. And yes, I know I saw him in Ghana. But I was like, I need to see Usher again. Every time I see somebody's clips from an Usher show, like, I get major FOMO. So I was like, I need to see Usher. But he's not performing on the dates that I'll be in America. And I was like, should I just like push Ghana back? And I was like, that's ridiculous. So I was really kind of stressed about it. And then Usher announced yesterday to me, still the same day for y'all, but Usher announced that he's doing a series of shows in Paris. So like, I immediately got on the bat phone and hit like all the Usher devotees in my friend list and was like, hey, we need to go see Usher. So I'm trying to figure out the logistics for that. Like, the way it's looking now is like I'm doing London, and then I'm doing Bali, and then I'm stopping back in Paris, and then going to the States, and then going back to Ghana. I think this is good Black news. Justin Jones is back at it. Justin Jones, who got kicked out of the Tennessee House, and it promptly, swiftly, unanimously was voted back in. If anybody thought him getting expelled, which I don't think anybody Black did, if anybody thought him getting expelled was going to like calm him down and make him think twice about protesting, no. It put a whole new battery in his back, diesel generated. He's hanging out with William Barber now, who's one of the greatest ministers, Reverend William Barber. Let me put some respect on the man's name. He's the head of, is it the Poor People's Campaign? I think that's the name of his probably best known. Lane is not the right word, but he's an advocate for helping impoverished people get out of poverty. And as I'm reading this article, it's on religiousnews.com. I didn't know this. I always knew about the Poor People's Campaign, but I'm reading this article and they refer to it as an anti-poverty effort bearing the name and goals of the movement launched by Martin Luther King shortly before his assassination. I didn't know King was anti-poverty. I think most people in theory are. I knew he did work around anti-poverty. It wasn't just like a thought, but I didn't realize Poor People's Campaign was actually the King movement. I've always attributed it to Reverend Barber. Reading this on USA Today. This isn't even like the point of what I'm talking about. But he and Justin Jones have become pals. Reverend Barber doesn't mind being arrested either. And he's not out here doing crazy stuff as a minister. He's breaking the law, technically, doing good trouble. He's been getting arrested 15 times, I think I read, trying to help Black folks and or poor folks, get some economic relief and get treated with some decency. So now William Barber, one generation, has paired up with Justin Jones, another generation, and they've gone out to raise hell together, this time in Tennessee. That's the whole point. Justin Jones and Reverend Barber led a demonstration yesterday in Tennessee He's still protesting gun control. He and some other protesters showed up with caskets at the Tennessee Capitol. Justin Jones was carrying a small casket to represent the size of a child, i.e., one of the 3 children that were murdered in Tennessee in the most recent school massacre. There were 5 caskets in total, and then somebody brought an urn just for, diversity's sake, make sure everybody's represented, even in death. Justin put on a dark suit. I thought it was notable when I saw the picture. Also, remember a couple episodes ago, I was talking about Justin Jones, and I just mentioned as an aside, he wears white suits. I didn't really think much about it. I just noticed, and I was like, I keep seeing pictures of him in this white suit. I don't know if it's the same white suit, if he has like a whole closet of white suits, like he's on some Olivia Pope type ish. Lisa Ray, remember Lisa Ray just wore white? She might still wear white, but like for years. I was like, maybe that's Justin Jones. Maybe that's what he's into. Like I keep seeing these suits. He had some other suits. There was a pastel suit for sure. I can't remember which color pastel, but it was like it was a very light suit. But I was like, all right, the man likes light suits. This, not the worst situation. And it was right around Easter, so it all fit in. But I just mentioned it as an aside. Like it was literally like 3 sentences because his fashion obviously is not the focus. Like his activism, the injustice of his expulsion, and then him being voted back in, and then him protesting gun control, and then him getting the Klan statue and being arrested like, I don't know, over 10 times to get that Klan statue out of the Tennessee Capitol. These are the things that matter. The suit, it was an aside, something I mentioned. The New York Times did an entire story, like at length. Like it was a good 750, 800 words about Justin's white suit. Like if Robin Givhan had taken it up at the Washington Post, I'd be like, well, she speaks about fashion. This is what she does. Not to say that the Times doesn't cover style, but they really made like a whole big ass story about like Justin Jones and his white suit. And they tied it to the history of activism of people wearing white. So when I saw the story, I was like, I feel like this is a bit of overkill. Like y'all are doing a lot. And then I actually went and read it and I was like, okay, maybe there's, not maybe. There is a long history of activism of people in white suits. The Times refers to the white suit as powerfully symbolic and few garments in the political wardrobe that have been worn so deliberately and become as imbued with meaning. They talked about Hillary Clinton, when she became the Democratic nominee for president, she's the first woman. Hillary Clinton wore a white suit. The Times notes that in 1917, they went back, there was a silent protest parade organized by the NAACP in which 10,000 Black folk marched down Fifth Avenue in protest against discrimination and anti-Black violence. They all wore white. In 2020, there's a Brooklyn Liberation March, a protest for Black trans rights in front of the Brooklyn Museum. They had 15,000 attendees. They all wore white. We just talked about Hillary Clinton and her Ralph Lauren white in 2016, and she wore white as a nod to Geraldine Ferrero, who also wore white when she became the Democratic Party's first female nominee for vice president in 1984. So long history of wearing white. They didn't mention in this article, when I started reading the article and was thinking about people wearing white in political protest, oddly enough, the first thing that popped in my mind was Nation of Islam. I remember talking about this in a film class when I was in college. There's a scene, it's an iconic scene in Spike Lee's Malcolm X, where one of the members of NOI has been abused by police. He's been taken to a police station, put in a cell, and they're not getting him medical treatment. I don't know if it's just Fruit of Islam, but a bunch of the members of the Nation of Islam, the men, show up outside the police station in protest. And they're standing there waiting for Malcolm X's signal of like how to proceed. Like we're organized, but are we organized in peace or are we organized in chaos? Because we can do both. The reason we studied that scene in school was because if you go and look at historical photographs of the Nation of Islam protesting, they would always have the women in white standing at the front. And my professor, the Black woman, was using this scene as an example of misogyny, really, patriarchy, if you will, and the erasure of Black women in protest. That's why when I started reading this article, I was like, oh, the women in white, because I remembered what my professor said. They also talk about Nancy Pelosi. She wore white to the State of the Union in 2019. Is that when she ripped up some papers? Like she was sitting behind Donald Trump and she ripped up some papers and then she gave him that like shady sideways clap. So Nancy Pelosi wore white there. And then she also wore white when she announced the decision to begin drafting articles of impeachment against then President Donald J. Trump. So there's a long list of protesters in white. They reached out to Justin Jones to get him to talk about his white. He didn't respond. He was like, I got other shit to do. I'm organizing my next protest. I don't have time for this. I'm trying to find a child-sized casket to carry into the Capitol. I don't think the Tennessee House understood the monster, the good monster that they have unleashed in Justin Jones. He got shenanigans for days. Y'all might as well just get this man what he wants, because otherwise he's going to embarrass y'all. Y'all tried to kick the man out the house. Not tried, did. Literally the house. For protesting gun control. He got back in. It ain't been a week. Now he done gone and found William Barber, who also loves to raise hell in Jesus' name, and also has no problem getting arrested. Y'all done found Justin Jones a mentor in protest and in Christ, but like the flipping table side of Christ. Y'all, what have y'all done? I mean, I'm glad you did it, because they doing all this on behalf of my Black ass. Y'all didn't really think through that expulsion thing. People did not know who the man was 2 weeks ago. Now we know his first and last name. We know he went to divinity school. We know all his activism. And now he done went and found a friend and mentor. Y'all done supercharged that man. Gave him diesel. Did it to yourselves. You could have not been racist. Speaking of problems in the Tennessee House, this gentleman on Twitter was none too pleased. Let me see if I can find this story, because I did screenshot it, because my mouth was hanging open while I was reading. I was like, oh no, oh no, oh no, 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 no. But I laughed too. The Tennessee Speaker of the House, Cameron Sexton, that's his name. He is the one who initiated the expulsion of the Justins. I think we talked about him in a previous episode. I didn't play the clip, but I think I read it. But he spoke to, I think it was Justin Pearson. It could have been Justin Jones, but he spoke to one of them in just such a condescending way. And he said, I was very paternalistic, but like how you behaved was unacceptable. This is not how we do things here. He said, you all so desperately wanted attention, and like now, I'm going to be the one to give it to you. And then they were expelled from the house. It was just a real like nasty way to speak to someone. And even in the response, I think it was Justin Pearson. He was like, y'all have created an environment where you think it's okay to speak to people like that and to be condescending, and it's not okay. A lot of people took issue with the way that he spoke. So folks went and started taking a look at the speaker's life. And this is what we've learned in like a week. He doesn't live in the district he's been elected to represent, and he's supposed to. He's kind of in violation. And so while he's expelling the Justins for, not behaving with the decorum expected of members of the House, I'm like, sir, your house, your literal house, is not in the location that it needs to be in order for you to hold your job. Folks got to know when to hold. Like, you got too much personal shit to be bringing national attention to yourself, sir. There's also a question of how he purchased his home and the funds used. There's a question about whether the home was purchased using campaign finance funds. Sir, people go to jail for that. People go to jail for that. Not like I went to jail for good trouble because I was protesting gun control. Protesting like I went to jail because I stole the people's money. And he allegedly has a mistress. They posting pictures of the woman all over the Twitter. It's a cute blonde lady. You got too much dirt, alleged, to be out here antagonizing other people and drawing national attention to yourself. You could have stayed quiet and ate your food. You could have had your house that's outside your district. Nobody would have been looking into the purchase of your home. Sir had the benefit of the doubt that he was upstanding above board and behaving in a legal manner because he's the Speaker of the House. Now people got to investigating your shit, and your shit ain't right. Now, if you go digging at anybody's shit, nobody's shit is right, self included. I tell y'all, like, I'm a heathen, I'm a hypocrite. I did dumb shit yesterday. I'm not out here acting self-righteous. Not be talking about people acting a fool, because I know what foolishness looks like. Don't come for me. The alleged mistress is married too. It's just a big old mess. I just Googled his name, Cameron Sexton. The first two stories that show up, Business Insider. The title is Christian Group Calls for Removal of Tennessee House Leader. Oh. Newsweek. Headline. Cameron Sexton resign calls grow as Tennessee Speaker dogged by scandals. The New Republic. This is all within the last 24 hours, by the way. Tennessee House Speaker faces growing calls to resign. Could have just ate your food. You could have just ate your food. This guy wrote into me the other day. I told his ass I was going to talk about him. He was real kind about it, but he was like, Demetria. He was like, you funny on the podcast talking about how you don't want to be called auntie. He was like, every time you tell us about some scandals, you want to be like, oh dear, and give us, He was like, all these oh dears and deep sighs. He was like, it's very much giving auntie on the southern porch. Just FYI. He was like, you don't want to be called auntie, but you doing auntie shit. I went and looked at his profile picture. I was like, who is this young man trying to tell me about myself? And I was like, oh shit, I am auntie. Don't call me that shit. But he and I had a cute exchange. I was like, pointer maid. Pointer maid. I see where you're coming from. I was like, at least I'm over here with strong USD for now. I was like, this exchange rate is allowing me to give rich auntie vibes. I was like, at least I ain't broke auntie. Still. Oh dear. I'm like, I hate you. I hate you. Look, let's look at this Newsweek article real quick and see if there's any additional details. Thousands of Christians, I'm reading this on Newsweek. Thousands of Christians have signed an online petition demanding Sexton vacate the speaker's chair. They accuse him of acting with racist intentions by seeking to remove the Justins. And then they also mention the allegations, which Newsweek notes that Sexton has not responded to, that he does not live in the district he represents, and that he may have had an affair. The petition has received 19,000 signatures. Good Lord. The Newsweek also has more details about the speaker's home. They say his property is listed in a place called Crossville. But according to property records, the house was sold in October 2020, and then he bought a condo nearby. And so he represents the district of Crossville, but he lives in Nashville, and that would prevent him from being an eligible voter in the district he represents. And that's a requirement for a district representative under Tennessee's Constitution. Oh dear. I saw people on Twitter, because they messy. After the story came out about the alleged mistress, people started tweeting the wife to make sure she saw the story. I was like, oh dear. Oh dear. His whole family being harassed over his bullshit. Alleged bullshit. Don't come sue me, nobody. Speaking of, I don't know, is it alleged bullshit? He said he ain't do it. Andrew Gillum. I keep his name somewhat out my mouth. His wife sent me an email once. She also came on my Facebook page, my personal page, at that, and left a really angry message. She and her husband had appeared on Tamron earlier that day, and we were discussing it on Facebook. And the idea was like, what were y'all thinking? Because that interview was terrible. So we were talking about it, which I think is fair game. Like, you've done a national interview. It's not like, I'm just randomly sitting around. Like, who I was thinking about we should drag today? Like, you just did a national interview the day of. But apparently she followed me for a while. And so she had some choice words in the comment section. Because she is a Black woman, and because when a husband goes and does some dumb shit, there's really no win for the wife. I take it easy on her, even though she flipped on me. Because I imagine, like, your husband go do some dumb shit. Actually, I don't have to imagine. Your husband go do some dumb shit, and now everybody looking at you like, you gonna put up with this, sis? And like, you kind of do want to leave him, but you also be like, well, he's the father of my kids and I love him. And then everyone's expecting you to do something like immediately. And you're like, can I just breathe and figure out my fucking life? Because everything was fine yesterday. And now we're in the middle of a national fucking scandal. And I don't really know how to navigate this shit. The fuck? I get it. I get it. Her reaching out to me reminded me that when I speak about things, that there are very real people attached to the stories. So I try to give grace and understanding where I can, unless it's like some real crazy shit like, nigga, what? Andrew Gillum's story, many parts of it do rise to the level of nigga, what for me? And not necessarily what he allegedly did, the hotel room situation where he totally pulled the like, I do not recall, to explain how he ended up there. I'm like, okay. For me, it's really more the cleanup job that they tried to do afterward. I don't think they even waited a full year before they addressed it publicly. And it's just been a mess. When I hear his name, I think of the hotel scandal. That really didn't affect anything, to be quite honest. He wasn't holding office at the time that scandal in the Miami hotel room took place. The real story, the one that's not so scandalous, is, and we talked about this on here when it happened. I'm pulling this up in the Miami Herald because I want to make sure I get my details right. I said something a couple weeks ago about Stacey Abrams never holding political office, and somebody checked me and was like, no, she ran for governor twice and didn't win, but she's held political office, like she was in the state legislature. And I was like, oh shit. Somehow didn't know that. And I feel like I've read a whole bunch of stuff about Stacey Abrams. Everyone talks about her registering all those people to vote. I never remember a story about her being in the House legislature. My bad. She is a woman of many accomplishments. I missed a couple. My bad. Genuinely, my bad. I'm reading this in the Miami Herald. They talk about how 5 years ago, Andrew Gillum was one of the brightest stars in Florida politics. And then they go through a series of public failures, which we don't need to recount. He's only 43. Damn. And then they talk about how last year, 2022, he was indicted by a federal grand jury accused of lying to FBI agents and defrauding campaign mega donors and organizations that believed they were donating to legitimate political causes. And his political advisor and mentor, Sharon Janet Letman Hicks, they put that woman's whole name in the paper, are facing a 3-week trial in a federal court in Tallahassee that starts Monday. Now, they say that Gillum has denied the allegations against him, but the Miami Herald does note the federal corruption probe that led to charges against Gillum has already led to convictions against another former Tallahassee mayor and a local developer. This is ungood. This is what he's accused of doing wrong. When you hear like federal charges, you're like, well, you done did some crazy shit. It actually seems very, what's the word? Mediocre is not the right word. There's another word I'm looking for. It just doesn't rise to the level of hot scandalous tea. I mean, not, compared to the other shit he's known for, which was, scandalous, but not illegal. This is according to the Miami Herald. The day after Gillum lost the 2018 election, when he was running for governor, he emailed his campaign staff and said that he was assigning Letman Hicks, the mentor, to oversee the campaign budget. The campaign then transferred $60,000 to Letman Hicks Communications Company for expenses relating to get out the vote efforts. That communications company then made 4 $5,000 transfers called bonuses to Gillum's personal account. The indictment alleges that nearly $57,000 in campaign funds were illegally steered into Gillum's personal account. Also, Gillum is charged with lying to the FBI. This part is crazy. And I'm still reading from the Miami Herald. The FBI was doing a public corruption investigation in Tallahassee. They had undercover agents pose as developers, and these undercover agents paid for a 2016 trip that Gillum and his brother took to New York City. The undercover agents put them up at the Millennium Hilton, which ain't even that good a hotel. It's all right. It's inexpensive, all things considered, but even on a tight budget, I don't stay there when I go to the city. They paid for food and drink, a boat ride around New York Harbor. Even if it was chartered, we still not talking like buku money. And a ticket to the hit Broadway show, Hamilton. You better have been front row in some $4,000 seats. Focus. Hold on. So again, FBI agents, undercover agents posing as developers paid for all this shit, right? Fast forward the following year, the FBI comes to Gillum and they say, hey, did you go to New York City with some developers and they gave you a bunch of gifts? Because I imagine that shit is illegal. Gillum was like, no, nigga. When the FBI start asking you questions, they already know the answers. They just trying to see if you're going to work with them, if you're going to be honest or not. Bruh. I mean, there are other charges. It's not like lying to the FBI is the only charge. But bruh, the trip that they're describing, that's not even like a 5-star trip. That's not even a 4-star trip. We're talking about maybe, for 2 people even, you're talking about maybe 10 G's. And then the other part about the money going into his account, $57,000. Nigga, you got federal charges for like, I'm going to just round up because I want it to sound like he at least did this for like decent money. $75,000? Federal charges for $75,000? Nigga. I'm thinking this man done stole millions. I'm thinking he done stole white people level money. You got federal charges for allegedly $75,000? Bruh, you could have made that on podcast ads in 3 months, especially before the scandal in the hotel room. He needed a manager. The mentor with the communications firm, like nobody told you, like you're a national rock star. Like try to get a little contract with CNN or MSNBC, do political commentary. Do like the rest of the politicians that work in public service for a couple years, learn all the connects and turn themselves into personal brands and then go work for the big corporations. Nigga, go be a lobbyist. He could have called anybody in DC who's worked on the Hill for 5 years and they could have given him that plan. Bruh, I know you not in this bullshit for $75,000. I was thinking the charges had to at least be for like, I don't know, at least 6 figures and mid-6, not $75,000. Bruh, you could have got a job for this shit. He could have gone corporate and made mid-6. He would have had this in 3-4 months. The question never was whether he was smart, astute, intuitive, well-connected, knew what the fuck he was doing. That was never a question. Man can't stay out of scandal. I hope he gets out of this one just because I don't like to see no black man go to jail, especially not over $75,000. When these white boys steal, they be stealing millions. $75,000, my dude. And that's the roundup number. $75,000 is big money. It's significant money, but not to catch a federal charge over. Me and my dad used to play this game. I can say this now because he's retired. But my dad would be like, he was like, look, everybody got a price. He was like, I'm not here to judge. Like, he was like, people take money. People trying to live. He was like, these white boys do it. He was like, I know one thing, I ain't going to jail for no 6 figures. I ain't doing it for 7 either. He's like, everybody got a price. He said, my price wouldn't be that low. He was like, black folks got to know they can't do that shit. They can't do that shit. And he's like, if you're going to do that shit, you got to do it for a certain amount. And he was like, I'm not judging what he did because everybody got a number. I said, you got a number? He said, I got a number. I said, Daddy, what's your number? He said, I got a number. I said, Daddy, what's your number? He said, it's over 50 million. I said, 50 million? He was like, 50 million. He was like 50 million because that means I can run. He was like, I know one thing, I ain't gonna steal no 50 million and it still be sitting up in the US. He was like, me and my 50 million going somewhere. And I was like, you gonna leave us? And he was like, I got 50 million. Y'all ain't coming? Yo, he's out of his mind. Yo, I really hope this man don't go to jail. Let him pay restitution. It's only restitution is $75,000. He could figure that out. He should be able to figure that out. He's married with 3 kids, 3 young kids. His wife don't like me because I talk shit about her husband. I still like her. I root for black women. I do. I want her to win. And only because I want her to win, I don't want his black ass to go to jail. Oh, I guess I should mention how this whole story came up because I wasn't paying the least bit of attention to it. Andrew Gillum is asking for funds, ends and dividends, to help pay for his legal bills. That's how the story came to my attention. he posted on social media, Instagram, yesterday. He's running a campaign called the Bring Justice Home Legal Defense Fund. That's not joy in my voice. I'm laughing at this shit. Sir. He says, I'm facing one of the greatest challenges yet in a court case that begins tomorrow in Tallahassee. First, let me state unequivocally that I am innocent of the allegations being made against me. I have never taken advantage of my office or position to cheat, con, or deceive anyone. To the contrary, I have always fought on behalf of those who sit in the margins of our society, no matter what the cost. While this case has targeted my character, service, and actions, I want you to remember that I am the same Andrew that you've always known, a man of character and integrity with a heart for service. Sir. A heart for service. I won't argue with you. Character and integrity? Does he know we saw them pictures? Even the blurred out ones? And we read that crazy article in Rolling Stone where he tried to justify that shit. And then he sat on Tamron Hall and was like, I recall nothing. Him getting on here talking about like, you know me, sir, what we know about you, like the prime thing we remember. Maybe people in Florida, because they knew you a little bit better. They know details of the good deeds you had done. But the rest of the country, did you ask him for money? I am the same Andrew that you've always known. Sir, a man of character and integrity is not really what we remember you as. I mean, no offense. I'm saying, like, the thing that we primarily know you as is the interview on Tamron Hall. And then that big feature in Rolling Stone that ain't make no sense. So he talks about his background, where he went to school, previous positions held. He thanks people for their prayers and words of support. He says, please keep them coming. And then he gets to the kicker. It's one of these long posts. Like when I write to like my mom, it's like long like that. I'm not reading everything for obvious reasons. The kicker is, for those who are able, please consider making a donation to my legal defense fund. Link in bio. He name checks a couple people, well-known folks. If I named them, you would know them. But he says he's grateful to them for helping establish the Bring Justice Home Legal Defense Fund. He says, my family and I have made considerable financial sacrifices to defend my innocence, and your contributions will go toward the $1 million in additional funds needed to cover the trial and my legal representation. I ain't mad he asking for money. It's just a hard sell. Like, you're facing charges that you used money illegally for your personal gain, and now you're asking people to send you money again. Okay. I will be back on Friday with a little bit more to discuss. I've seen the Jonathan Major story in Deadline about how all his people have dropped him. I'll save it for Friday. That story ain't going nowhere. Also, Snowfall, the finale for Snowfall airs on Wednesday. I'm going to talk about it on Friday's podcast. But just prepare yourselves accordingly. We're going to talk about whatever happens in detail. That's totally not everything, but that's what we've got. All right, talk Friday. Bye.